Okay, sweet. So if you can, I know you kind of already said this a little bit earlier, but could you just explain like whether you're a student or like what you're doing, like who you are and what your profession is, etc.
Yeah. Josh Matthews. I am a former UCD student, alumni, CAM alumni. I did the music tech degree, I did the music business degree, and then I did the audio production pedagogy masters through the graduate program. And there, big shout out to Scott Burgess and Jeff Merkel and all of them. Right now, I do freelance audio production work, and I have my own app. I specialize in a very specific form of audio called 3D audio, immersive audio. Some people know it as ambisonics. 3D sound, you listen on headphones and it sounds like it's out in the room. And I make music like that. I have my own app that I use where I stream everything live through the app, so you get 3D music in the app. We're working on getting stuff set up so we can actually stream virtual reality live shows. You can go on the app, you can watch the show live from home in a VR headset or on a phone. Everything's like, it's like you're really there. So real forward thinking things there. It's a lot of it's in the ground phase. I just graduated last year. I had a major spine surgery shortly after that, so I'm still kind of on the ground floor of it all. But that's the main thing, and hoping to get into teaching because I do have the pedagogy degrees.
That's super cool though, because I've heard about like 3D audio. I mean, I just did a project about how Sony is coming out with a new car that features like 3D audio basically. And I'm just like, what? That's so cool.
I
Um,
take all that. It's the same tools they use at like Sony and Dolby for video games and Atmos and all that stuff. I just take it and apply it to music, which is the one thing nobody's really been doing yet. It's in the games, it's in the movies, it's
mhm.
in all of that design. And even ads are starting to work with it, but no, it's slow getting to the music industry. And I just kind of jumped the gun on it and was like, what am I doing here? And yeah, it's cool. You can listen on any device, and there's ways you can do it to where you don't need a Sony PlayStation or an Atmos. That you can listen on your any phone you have with any pair of headphones you have and get the full 3D experience.
That's epic. That's
Like
exciting.
I could put it on Spotify and Apple, but I'm trying to like do my own thing with
Yeah.
the branded app and see if that'll work. If it doesn't, maybe I'll just put it out on Spotify. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's
All
coming.
right. Alrighty. So, can you describe the most exciting audio project you've completed and why was it your favorite?
Most exciting I completed, is this like in an academic sense or even after? Yeah.
It can be either or.
Uh, Honestly, my master's thesis was probably the most exciting thing I did. I have synesthesia. I see colors and shapes kind of combined together when I hear musical sounds. And I took one of my songs that I had done in regular stereo. I created a 3D mix of it. And then I used the HTC Vive headset with an app called Tilt Brush to basically paint the song as I saw it in a 3D environment. And it had it to where you could solo certain sounds, and then you could look, everything was numbered, every shape that you could see, okay, that's the kick drum. And then you could solo the kick drum and you could just see it right there. And you kind of see where everything laid out. And the basis was to put out the concept such that we could develop a real-time 3D audio production system like a DAW, where instead of using keyboards and mouses to click buttons and turn knobs, you have shapes in a VR environment, and you manipulate the shapes. You change the color of them, the size of them, you can change the shape of it, the texture, refine the edges. And it requires a lot of groundwork to figure out what kind of changes should result in what kind of change. And that's where it gets really intense. But we kind of wanted to put the concept out there that this could be done. You could maybe take this sound and we could, applying a tube compressor fuzzes the edges of it, and applying a solid state compressor sharpens the edges of it, that kind of thing we were toying with. Through the computer science division there at UCD as well. It was kind of a
Mm.
joint program venture. And so, yeah, I got to just paint a song in 3D space, and we did it as a couple art exhibits and do the whole presentation. It was so awesome to just, yeah, be able to sit there and explore the inside of your own head like that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. If there's any animation based projects that I've seen that are my favorite, it's when it's like basically visual music.
Mm.
Those are my all-time favorites.
And
So
see, that's
that's
like, it's so close to synesthesia. All the stuff you're talking about, and it's right there at the, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is to blur those lines. And the that was what the project was about, but the actual thesis paper was kind of making the point, or the point that I tried to make in it is that all audio engineers, even those who don't have synesthesia, can benefit, especially in the coming wave of 3D real time, real space sounds, of starting to think about sound as somewhat of a visual element, or even if not a visual element, a spatial element. Let's say that.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So as a what would you regard as your best skill?
I don't know if I would. I mean, I guess it's a skill because I've had to develop it. But my ear, I have an ability to hear things that most other people can't. Like, I can hear half decibel changes in a guitar, things like that. That just
Wow.
not like someone talking to me from the other room. I might not hear what they're saying, but when I sit down, I've got my headphones in or I'm on the speaker. I can hear. I can hear finer adjustments than most people can. I've gotten in arguments with one of my engineers that I work with once because I kept telling him the kick was pumping at this one part and he swore it wasn't. We had to like pull out the RMS meter, and sure enough, it was a zero point 0.4 dB pump on one hit of the kick. But like, I heard it.
Wow, that's impressive. Uh, so describe a time you almost missed a deadline, and how did you go about this problem to be able to catch up?
I almost missed a deadline. When I was in music business analysis, Benham Plum's class, we had to do a QuickBooks project where you basically did a mock 2-year business in QuickBooks, all your sales, all your receipts, all your taxes, utilities, all of that stuff. We had the whole semester to do it. I was going through some crazy things in my personal life and wasn't able to get onto it like that. And I wasn't able to really sit down and look at it till like the week before it was due. And the entire semester, like that was pretty much the only grade for anything in the semester. And I sat down. The first thing I did was kind of try and clear my head, because if my head is clear, I can't focus like that. And I sat down. I told myself, you have to do this. You can't fail this class. You got yourself in this position, and you could wallow in it, or you could ask for help, or you could ask for an extension. But the fact is, you did this yourself. So instead of trying to find a way to, I want to say, work my way out of it or give myself the leeway, I just kind of buckled down and I said, you know what? I got myself into this. I can get myself out of it. And if that means I have to spend 10 hours a day doing it, then I'm going to spend 10 hours a day on this computer for the next week doing this. And it only took me about 3 days in the end. I prepared myself well enough. I actually paid attention in the class, even though I wasn't, doing the work at home. I was at least paying attention. And I spent 10 hours a day for like 3.5 days on it, put good 35 hours into it. And I did it all. And it was just a matter of, I wish I could tell you that I had, found some great heroic way through it, but I buckled down. I feel like sometimes as a student, like that's really all it boils down to. It's real easy to find everything else to do, and I'm the king of procrastination, as evidenced by the story itself. Um, but just being able to get yourself in that zone, I think a lot of people would be surprised how fast they can work once they actually clear the head, set up the space around them, the physical space, such that they need it to promote that creativity and inspiration. And then once you sit down and you get through the first word, or you get through the first edit, or you get through the first calculation, and you let yourself do it, and like let yourself and just head first. As it stands, I got a 99 on the project, so it
Wow,
works.
good for you. I'm glad that would you say that you do well under pressure?
I don't want to say that, but in practical effect, it seems that way. Like I wish I could say I gave myself, but that's not really Yeah, I wish I could say I gave myself more prep time, but that's not the only time in my life that I found myself at the last minute. Uh, um, I'm a good example of being able to still be an achiever while putting things off to no end.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
I don't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah. Let's see. Describe a time when you misunderstood a brief and what happened. And you can try to be as specific as possible.
Eh, I was in a class with Jeff Merkel, a surround sound class. Love Jeff Merkel to death. Um, but one thing about him in that class is he's so advanced with the stuff he's doing that when I first came into the idea of spatial audio, he was just, I do the same thing to people, just a million miles an hour of just fact after fact after fact. And everybody in the class was kind of lost. And we had a surround sound project where we were supposed to take some Nine Inch Nails audio files, because Trent Reznor puts out all the audio, all the multi tracks, and mix them into Window. And he gave us this really basic, or not basic, this really in-depth explanation of everything we were supposed to do. And in actuality, it was stupid simple. Like what you actually had to sit down and do, like I could do it with my eyes closed. But I just didn't at all understand like the way he was explaining it. And I went in and I tried to put together some 5.1 surround routed mix, and I thought you had to route the individual ambisonic channels, and get into some technical stuff here, but with ambisonics, there's like, you could almost call them phantom channels of audio that you don't actually hear them. They just provide directional information. And
Mm-hmm.
so if your inputs and outputs, you might see 16 tracks that all say they're not connected, and it looks totally counterintuitive to everything you've been taught as an audio engineer, but like you need to leave them that way. And so I was going, like I went through and I manually like connected all the tracks to different speaker outputs. And like all he wanted us to do was to just load the files in. Like turn on the one plugin and just move the dot. Like that's really all you had to do. I tried to like reroute the whole system in a KC 146, you know, that studio out in the King Center.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they do like some of the mastering classes there.
Mm-hmm.
It's right by the concert hall on the bottom floor, kind of
Oh
towards the
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, towards the north side. Yeah, I ended up damn near rerouting like the whole Duendo system there, because I and ended up getting like other people messed up the project in other ways, so he ended up kind of grading it on a curve. Uh, but yeah, no, I had to like bring in two core monitors and one of the other teachers in there to figure out what I had messed up in there, and they had to like reroute the Dante. That's what it is, Dante system that they have there that can all the digital devices. And yeah, I just messed up like the whole KC 146 trying to just load some tracks into an Amazon. And yeah, the way I got out of that, or not necessarily got out of it, but got through it, is I just humbled myself. And I was like, I've been doing this for like 8 years in this school and like 10 years in life in general, but I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so I called people and I humbled myself and I took it on the chin, and I told Jeff flat out, like, I didn't, like, I just didn't understand it. I thought I did, but I didn't. Like, it seemed like maybe it could make sense until I tried to like sit down and do it, and I got
Mm-hmm.
lost. If there's a way I can make it up with that, I'll do it. But on this one, I just kind of got to bite the bullet. And when you're honest with people like that, especially when you're reliable in general, but you have those moments where you just can't do it. In my experience, people are a bit more understanding about it because they know you at least care enough that you tried and you didn't
Yeah,
just give up on it at least.
yeah, for sure. I know that just in this semester alone, in my thesis class, that's happened to me so many times where I just didn't understand. Well, I thought I understood an assignment, but I didn't. And I had to just humble myself and just be like, okay, better luck next time. My professor
I
was,
did that in my thesis class. Because have you done the things yet where you have to actually like lay out the whole outline and do the table of contents per whatever association format you're going with?
So because with our pitch deck, it's somewhat like that, but not entirely in depth. That's what our process book is, and we don't start our process book until next semester. So
Yeah, in thesis you had to line it all out, and I remember I think God, I thought she wanted me to like actually start putting in chapters, and I started writing shit, and we hadn't even part of my friend we hadn't even like decided what my thesis was actually going to be yet, and like I'm trying to like write it, and you know you just need like one, two, three, like just numbers and like headings. That's it.
yep,
Fun.
I've been there so many
I feel
times.
what you're saying. You're gonna
Uh
do it though. It's always easier than you. In hindsight, it's probably gonna be easier than you thought it was gonna be.
oh yeah. So with mastering music, how often do you have to check your mix for any issues when you're like when you're exporting or listening to the music on various devices, whether it's through laptop speakers or your phone speakers or through actual speakers? How often do you have to go back into your mix and like check to make sure like whether there's issues or not?
Every single time, religiously, probably to the point of overly obsessing about it. Me personally, I am, and it's because of that thing. Like, and I do a lot of my mixing because the 3D stuff's on headphones primarily,
Mm-hmm.
unless you've got a full, 16 speaker system. So I've got my regular stereo speakers. I got my HD 600s, the Sennheisers, but I know where their frequency weaknesses are and where I'll run into problems with the bass or the highs. So then I have another pair of, I can't remember what the company name is, but it's like a $10 pair of Walmart speaker or headphones that are basically trying to sound like Beats. Bass is just way loud when the highs are kind of scratchy. But then I listen on those, and because the bass is so overly loud, I can, even though I don't have a sub in my system, I can get the effect of a sub on there. And so each system, there's something different that I'm listening for on. And anytime I don't do that, or better said, I have yet to have a mix that as soon as I finished it on one system, it automatically sounded perfect on everything else. There's always that across the board aspect of it. And honestly, a lot of my mixing time that I spend has to do with making these fine adjustments when I'm playing it too. I try to find this homeostasis where it sounds acceptable and it sounds like I want it to on everything at the same time. And there's always a way you can get it there's always a way. I've yet to find a song that you could get there. But yeah, if I spent 8 hours mixing a song, I probably spent 4 hours mixing it, and then 4 hours just going back and forth between different speakers and stuff, just fine tuning elements. And like even those little half decibel changes, it's
Mm-hmm.
something I not hear the volume of it change so much, but you hear the size of it change. And then if you
Okay.
change the size of one thing, then the size of other things changes along with that. If you make the voice smaller, well, the kick gets bigger. And so you can kind of you and it's a trap that you can fall into as an engineer, like chasing down all these little things, because every time you change one thing, it changes something else, and then before
Mm.
you know, you're not at all where you started from. So you have to be metered in that. Um, but it's definitely a huge part, I think, of engineering, because if you're not going back and making sure it sounds great on everything, you're gonna hear it on something and be like, why does it sound like
that
that?
that's that's good to know because I'm actually in the middle of mastering a song right now for my songwriting class, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to make it sound similar through like when I'm listening on my headphones with my laptop versus just listening on my phone, because for some reason on my phone my vocals are much louder than the rest of the instruments.
And a lot of that has to do with understanding the frequency response of the device you're listening on, because that's what it all boils down to. That's
Okay.
what's making all the differences is the frequency response. So On phones, you're going to get a louder vocal, especially because the speakers are so small that even using Ghost fundamentals, you know what a Ghost fundamental is?
Mm,
Like how a tuba plays a note lower technically than what it can actually play. Because
oh,
if you play all the overtones, your brain fills in the fundamental, and
yeah.
so that's how a lot of these speakers work, and that's how you get any bass at all out of a phone speaker is Ghost fundamentals. Um, but the speakers are so small that you're losing everything from like 200 hertz down. Um, and there's ways you can balance it, and a lot of it depends on how much bass is in your voice and how much mids are in your voice, and it's hard to understand. Like, I haven't heard the song, so I couldn't really tell you exactly what's going on there. Um, but a lot of it has to do with just like, even if you just find the phone you have and look up what speakers it has and what the frequency response of those is, and you'll see, where it's over accentuating things or where it's under accentuating things. And there's times I do mastering a lot in stereo stuff, regular stereo. That's my specialty, is mastering, because of those small changes. And you'd be amazed what notching out zero point 0.6 dB at one specific part of your voice can do. And you get to a situation where you can make tiny adjustments like that, such that it maybe takes the edge off the voice in the phone, but doesn't really negatively affect the presence of it on other devices. And I think mastering that ability is a lot of it, where I can make the change I need on the one device without it negatively detracting from how it sounds on the other things. And a lot of that comes in with making those really small, tiny surgical changes.
Okay.
Knock off a half dB here, 1 dB here, real narrow Q kind of stuff, and just playing with it, and not even listening for a big tonal change, but just a shift in the size of everything and how it's balanced against each other. Things There was I can't remember the term for it, but one of my teachers talked about changes that aren't meant to be noticed but just felt,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
that's a big part of it, I think. Also, and you don't have to have every device in the world. You know what I do? Like, I've got my cheap headphones. They reveal scratchiness in the highs, and they reveal the things about the bass because they've got just an overwhelming amount of bass. I've got a pair of Sennheiser HD100s and a pair of earbuds, and those tell me what like the mids are. Those tell me if I'm piercing in the presence range, because that's one thing that I've noticed. I can sucker myself into having a kind of piercing mid range if I don't watch it. Um, so I have my earbuds and my cheaper Sennheisers that let me know that. And then I have my HD 600s, my nice ones, which they give me the general sense. And that's what I'm doing most of the mixing in. And they've got a real nice low mid. I can tell the body of a mix, and I can kind of tell how smooth or not the highs are. And then I've got I do listen on my phone speakers. Phone speakers tell me if I have too much reverb on something. My phone speakers specifically, the reverb comes out really heavy on them. And then I have one little Bluetooth speaker, and because I do the 3D stuff, um, sometimes you have to be concerned with how it translates from 3D on headphones to stereo on speakers. Doesn't
Hmm.
always play well, so that's a new paradigm you have to take into consideration. And that speaker tells me a wealth of information about the translation I'm getting, because it's a little mono speaker that's cutting out so many things. And like, I can tell, for instance, if my vocals are too loud by listening on that speaker, or if I pan something too far away. Because in 3D, you still hear it, but if you pan something far away in 3D and then play it on a stereo speaker, it just makes it really quiet. And so you kind of have to keep things panned within a certain range, a sweet spot kind of, in order to make it convincing. And I've got, so altogether, I've got maybe 4 or 5 different devices I listen on. And each one of those gives me a specific bit of information about a specific frequency range in the content, and using them all together, the amalgamation of that kind of gives you what you need in the end.
Okay. No, that's really helpful. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Um,
Sorry to be so long-winded.
oh no, you're good. I love long interviews. I mean, I've had it where I've had interviews that were only supposed to be like half an hour long, they ended up being 2.5 hours long. So I just love listening and learning. But yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for your help and for all of the information that you provided.
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity provided, I guess. I appreciate you being a gracious host and all.
Yeah, of course. Well, I hope that you have a good rest of your day.
You as well. Good luck on the thesis. Like I said, in the end, probably going to realize that you're expecting more out of yourself than everyone is expecting out of you. And it's going to
Probably.
be like the biggest weight off your shoulders. You're going to be like, wow, that was what got it for me is I saw someone else deliver their thesis. I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to be fine.
Well, thank you. That's definitely a word of encouragement for me.
All right. Well, have a good afternoon and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.